Okay. So happy birthday, Leonardo da Vinci. 1452. He was born on April 15th. Vinci is actually the place where he was born in Italy. So Leonardo da Vinci was an Italian polymath of the high Renaissance who was active as a painter, sculptor, architect, draftsman, theorist, engineer, and scientist. While his fame initially rested on his achievements as a painter, he also became known for his notebooks, in which he made drawings and notes on a variety of subjects, including anatomy, astronomy, botany, cartography, painting, and paleontology. Leonardo's genius epitomized the Renaissance humanist ideal, and his collective works compose a contribution to later generations of artists, rivaled only by that of his younger contemporary and fellow Florentine, Michelangelo. Born out of a wedlock to a successful notary and a lower-class woman in Vinci, he was educated by the renowned Italian painter and sculptor Andrea del Verrocchio. He began his career in Florence and then spent much time in the service of Ludovico Sforza in Milan. Later, he worked in Florence and Milan again, as well as briefly in Rome, all while attracting a large following of imitators and students. Upon the invitation of François Ier, Francis I, the King of France, he spent his last 3 years in France, where he died in 1519. So 502 years ago, he died. Since his death, there has not been a time where his achievements, diverse interests, personal life, and empirical thinking have failed to incite interest and admiration, making him a frequent namesake and subject in culture. Leonardo is among the greatest painters in the history of art. Despite having many lost works and less than 25 attributed major works, including numerous unfinished works, he created some of the most influential paintings in Western art. His magnum opus, the Mona Lisa, is his best known work and often regarded as the world's most famous painting. The Last Supper is the most reproduced religious painting of all time, and his Vitruvian Man drawing is also regarded as a cultural icon. In 2017, Salvator Mundi painting attributed in whole or part to Leonardo was sold at auction for $450 million, setting a new record for the most expensive painting ever sold at public auction. Of course, the Americans have to mention, the money connected to anything, including Leonardo. So this was the man. Experts think that this is a self-portrait in his older age. He was described as a very beautiful man, and with his mysterious side. In present times, the critic often descends in the bedroom of the subject that is analyzed, and apparently his sexuality was rather mysterious. But he painted and drew many women, but it seems he was not in love with them. Actually, it seems he loved men. When he was a young man or a teenager, apparently he had some conflict with the law because he was accused, from what I read, of necrophilia. That is, he had an explicit affection for the dead in the cemetery. So there, the greatest genius in human history had peculiar, tendencies or attributes. This is where he was born. Casa Natale, the native house of Leonardo in Vinci. Here it is. It's actually a nice house. I mean, you know, it's made of stone, so that's not a little thing. As I read, he was born from a, you know, an unofficial, you know, in an unofficial situation, so to speak. But who cares? You know, he arrived at the very top of human culture. So this is in Tuscany, and now you know what we see here. We see several buildings where exactly he was born. Maybe on the building on the left. Anchiano, Casa Natale di Leonardo. Some drawings. He drew a lot. This man drew and drew and drew and drew. And if we are to believe Goethe, by drawing, he took possession of knowledge. Goethe thought that only by drawing we actually see. I don't know what Goethe might have thought of using a camera. You know, is it the same thing, taking pictures of instead of drawing? Maybe not. Anyway, this man drew unbelievably well. I mean, not only that his drawings were accurate and rigorous, but they're also beautiful. So this duality makes him very, very, very special. You know, he made so-called scientific drawings or illustrations with an immense artistic value. So in this sense, he and it's not the only sense, but in this sense alone, he was unbelievable. He also used a method called sfumato, where he very, very discreetly made the transition between figure and background. In other words, he didn't use a contour line, as most people do. He tried to evoke the presence of the figure against the background, more than just you know, outlining the contour. His scientific inventions are also unbelievable. All kinds of mechanical apparatuses and you know. But again, you know, he was an engineer. He was also an artist. The beauty of the drawing is incredible. You know, I mean, what is this? This is an illustration for a device, no? But it has a soul. It has a sensitivity. And on the other hand, he was the amateur par excellence, because this man actually didn't finish anything. Well, maybe he finished, but even for Mona Lisa, he struggled for many years. And maybe if he would have been asked, he probably would have said that he didn't quite yet finish it. Otherwise, many things, I mean, his genius is scattered over an immense amount of notebooks and pages. And apparently he drew in mirror. He wrote in mirror. He also, apparently, I read somewhere, he made a lot of grammar mistakes. He didn't write so-called correctly. But his drawings are incredible. I mean, you know, look just at these circles in perspective, like, and every detail is shown, but is shown with sensitivity. It's not just preciseness. And you can see how the writing is in mirror, you know, written from right to left. I don't know why he did so. Everything in anatomy, you know, the drawings are precise, they are correct, they are excellent illustrations, but they are also beautiful and expressive. This is very difficult to do. You have someone who is rigorous and makes drawings that are accurate illustrations, but artistically they are banal. You have others where there is a lot of artistic expression, but they are not very rigorous or accurate. In his case, it's both. I mean, yes, if we are to use this mysterious word, genius, he was a genius. Maybe more than most people, if not all people. In my invitation, I made a statement which was a little bit provocative, where I said that the great Ottoman architect was equally great to Leonardo. And I believe, in a sense, he was, as an architect. And once we go through his work, you'll realize that indeed he was one of the most accomplished and best architects in the world ever, Sinan. So anatomical drawings, the curiosity of this man was unbelievable. And look how he writes around the drawings, and his quest for knowledge, but it was not an arrogant quest, it was really more like a contemplative quest, if I can say something like this. In a way, inefficient. He was not efficient. He even didn't publish his works, all his inventions. This man was in a dialogue with God, if I can say so, and he didn't care really if he got patents on works, or if on his inventions, or if his works were published, or if his great fresco, The Last Supper, would have lasted, and he didn't, because he used a particular technique that he invented, which was not great. And so that fresco almost vanished. So a very special man, truly. He was not interested in efficiency. In a way, he was out of this world. And on the other hand, he represented the best of this world, the capacity of the human being to go to stir up imagination through learning things. Through his curiosity was immense, and I think in this sense he inspires. I mean, look just here. How he attacked the problem of what happens when water falls into, let's say, in a basin, and what forces are at work there. This man was trying to discover everything. And the representation of his quest is very beautiful artistically. Architecture, we'll arrive at architecture too. I have a section, but essentially he is considered an architect, and of course he could have been a great architect. You see some sketches. This page is this is how his architecture was, actually. Scribbled temples and sections of various kinds of elements to constructive elements. And he was a dreamer, but a magnificent dreamer. I mean, look at these children. Look at this leg. Like this foot here and this hand here is. Everything is done so. Really, it was something magical about Leonardo. He even drew the baby in the womb. It was nothing that there was nothing that didn't interest him. Nothing. It was a quest for totality, for wholeness, and the wholeness of life. Yes, medical, I mean, how did he arrive at this, because, we have now x-rays and all kinds of things, but at that time there were no such things. So what is interesting is he looked at the reality and he dissected it, but he also used his imagination and his capacity to correlate, to use the word beloved by Frederick Kistler, to correlate, to bring together. unbelievable drawings. I mean, just look at these lines on the left, you know. I mean, he didn't draw these with a triangle and the T-square. No, these are done freehand. But just look at these. Look at the drawing. I mean, look just at this background here. The lines are so fine and you know, delicate, just right as a background. And then the skull is also drawn impeccably well. A remarkable man indeed. Giorgio Vasari thought that he was, you know, there was something divine about him. I read a few things by him, you know. I remember him saying that pain and pleasure are twins. An interesting statement. In our time, we are obsessed with pleasure, right? We want pleasure. We want comfort. But if he was right, and I believe he was right, we pay dearly for that pleasure, with the pain of being, you know, the slaves of a rigid program of work, 9 to 5 or whatever. Yes, we have a lot of gadgets, we have a lot of advantages in our time, but we pay, and that's why we have psychoanalysis to treat, to take care of our heads and our brains and our souls, because often we are nervous, we are agitated, we are anxious. So I mean, just looking at the drawings of I mean, at the drawings of Leonardo, and you feel inspired to I don't know, to contemplate the unbelievable. This drawing is architectural. Now I'm not sure he did it. I discovered it today on Google Images. If indeed it was him who did it, this is unbelievably visionary. I mean, just look at this, you know, this kind of, you know, structure covering, you know, some buildings here, but this is really visionary. I mean, something like this could be built today. It's because it's so diaphanous, it's so, it's standing, it's structural, but it's also very, very thin and very interesting. I think it is by him because it was you know, his name was mentioned with this drawing, but I didn't see it ever until today. Look at this face. I mean, you know, there is even he made some, and this was done by other people too. But you see some kind of a, I think he was concerned with some kind of similarity between the head of a lion and the head of a human being. And this was done, as I said, by other artists as well. I'm thinking, but later by Charles Lebrun, for example. He even did some cartoons. I don't have them here, but he did. I mean, look at this drawing. I would say it's perfect. I mean, look at the face. Look at everything. Look at the hair. Look how poetical it is and how discreet, how soft. There is no aggressivity, graphic aggressivity at all. And look at the expression of the face. It's almost like, you know, the smile of all time, of eternity in a way. But from the perspective of today, one would say this man just squandered his talent because he finished almost nothing. It was all sketches and studies and so on. But I think it's important to understand that life is not just reaching a goal or a target. And this he understood very well. It's about the journey. And you know, the utilitarian mind would say his genius was lost. What did he do? Just countless sketches and, you know, all kinds of unfinished studies and so on. No, I wouldn't say so. It's a splendid effort, and it's really about the unmeasurableness of life, of existence. Now, some architecture. If we are to talk about architecture, he only built a staircase, a double helix in France. But before we go through some of his sketches in architecture, let's look at the Vitruvian Man, the famous drawing, perhaps wrongly called the Vitruvian Man. And I will read a few things about it. I'm sure you know the drawing. So the Vitruvian Man, l'uomo vitruviano in Italian, originally known as le proporzioni del corpo umano secondo Vitruvio, the proportions of the human body according to Vitruvius, is a drawing made by the Italian polymath Leonardo da Vinci in about 1490. It is accompanied by notes based on the work of the Roman architect Vitruvius. The drawing, which is in ink on paper, depicts a man in two superimposed positions with his arms and legs apart and inscribed in a circle and square. This is the drawing, and we have an approximation also on the wall in the university here in Bucharest. What is very interesting here, and I actually found out only today, but I should have thought of it earlier, that the center of the square is not identical with the circle, center of the circle. You would expect that they are, but they are not. They have two distinct centers. The writing here is also in mirror with all the references to Vitruvius. So the drawing represents Da Vinci's concept of the ideal human body for proportions. Its inscription in a square and a circle comes from a description by the ancient Rome architect Vitruvius in book 3 of his Treatise de Architectura. Yet, as it has been demonstrated, Leonardo did not represent Vitruvius' proportions of the limbs, but rather included those he found himself after measuring male models in Milan. While the drawing is named after Vitruvius, some scholars today question the appropriateness of such a title, given that it was first used in the 1940s. Well, I'm not sure about that number. Maybe it was 1490 when actually the drawing was made, but that's what I took from Wikipedia. This image demonstrates the blend of mathematics and art during the Renaissance and demonstrates Leonardo's deep understanding of proportion. In addition, this picture represents a cornerstone of Leonardo's attempts to relate man to nature. Encyclopedia Britannica Online states, Leonardo envisaged the great picture chart of the human body he had produced through his anatomical drawings, and Vitruvian Man as a cosmographia del minor mondo, or minor mondo, cosmography of the microcosm. He believed that the workings of the human body to be an analogy for the workings of the universe. I think this is beautiful, and I think it is true. What is inside is outside. What is inside the human body is connected in good measure with, at least at the level of interrelationships with what is happening in the universe. The microcosm illustrates the macrocosm and vice versa. So the Vitruvian Man, this is an illustration which is not his, from 1521 by Cesariano, also who tried to illustrate the Vitruvian Man, but in a different way. For example, this one. You could try too, you know, it's like an eternal subject somehow. There are even variations with the Vitruvian woman, because indeed, why should this scheme refer only to the male, why not also to the female? No, I think it's a very legitimate question. Now I show some sketches, because that's what he did. Some sketches. Sketch of the Milan Cathedral by Leonardo da Vinci. These are just shadows of thoughts in a way. Although Friedrich Nietzsche said that the thought itself is the shadow of emotions. Interesting thought from Nietzsche. So he scribbled images of possible buildings, but he actually didn't build them. Well, I show all kinds of drawings here because really, I don't think there is a book, or maybe I'm wrong. I might even have one, a little Italian book with architectural preoccupations, because it's nothing else than a preoccupation with architecture. He could have built, obviously, but he didn't. So he just sketched various, like you look at these stairs here, or this tower here, or I don't know what this was supposed to be. On the other hand, he had these very elaborate machineries which were to be operated by a lot of people. This is a war machine or something, and nothing escaped the curiosity and the imagination of this man. A church, interesting church. But maybe, I mean, from the perspective of today, you say, so what's so great here? What's so original? Well, if we just look at the architecture, of course, it's not what we have today, but it does have, I mean, at least potentially, it has the significant raison d'etre. It could have been a very interesting building if it was built. It was not built. Sorry about this. Fortress walls, like Michelangelo, who also did studies for fortresses. They were agitated times. There were wars, just like there are wars now. Human beings never have peace. Interesting that most background lines that he draws are from right to left. As you can see, they are diagonals towards the left. And I read in a book a long time ago that apparently someone said that those who draw diagonal lines towards left are somehow on the side of the devil, and those who do it the other way towards right, they are favoring or working on the side of God. I don't know about that, but anyway, is this architecture? Not really, maybe, although I don't know, maybe today we could build something that approximates this kind of fluidity that we see here. Another scribble, another sketch for a possible building, mostly religious buildings, yes. I don't know what these are, some kind of machineries intended to build. He amused himself with all these discoveries, but it's incredible the level of detail, and at the same time, it's you have the feeling that this could have been, and I think he was rather pessimistic. In fact, I know I read some of his texts, and he didn't have this luminous belief in the greatness of humankind. Apparently, he loved a lot animals. I read that birds. I read that he used to buy cages with birds inside the cages, and then after he bought them, he would open the door and let the birds fly away. Good for him. Very nice. I mean, look at the intricacies here. It's unbelievable. No, this man was not a man. It was some sort, some kind of angel. Um, sketches and again sketches. And I wonder, why couldn't a student in architecture today do something like this too? Like a journey towards a goal which is never achieved, but the journey is very precious and rich and stimulating. Of course, if you do a project like this without final result, you would be punished. But I don't think the punishment would be the right conclusion or evaluation. We saw this one before. We saw this one as well. Here it is, for a bridge, fragment of an arch. Again, beautifully drawn. Again, the Vitruvian Man, and drawing which is difficult to see. And here they are. Could a drawing have enough power to mean something in the history of architecture, even though that drawing never became a building? I think it can, yes. There are incredible drawings that are very seriously considered and present in the history of architecture. Le Corbusier had such projects and drawings, Wright had, Kahn had, and of course Antonio Sant'Elia and many others, in fact. So the drawing, even if it doesn't become a building per se, it is important for architectural thinking, for pushing forward ideas, and so on. So in this sense, Leonardo was an architect as well. This is, to my knowledge and to the knowledge of others, the only built work by him. And even here, I didn't come across a text which said that for sure this is his work. He was invited by François Premier in France and housed. He was a resident in Chateau de Chambord, a truly great castle. And it is thought that he built this staircase, I mean, based on his drawings, on his plans. And it is a beautiful staircase, it's true, especially if you consider that it was made with stone. It is very beautiful. I mean, maybe if you just build this and it's enough, as a contribution to architecture. He loved spirals. He loved the double helix, because in essence, this is what it is, a double helix. Even here, we see his preoccupation with becoming as opposed to being. It was the process of becoming. This is what the spiral symbolizes, becoming. This is a beautiful drawing by Palladio of the staircase that it seems Leonardo built at the castle of Chambord. This is taken from the 4 books on architecture by Andrea Palladio. From the outside, looking upwards. So you see the relationship between nature and architecture. All great artists love nature, and all great artists and architects find in nature inspiration and confirmation for what they did. This was a sketch by Leonardo, but for a different kind of stair, with two stairs that interlock like this. Machineries, modern buildings, a self-portrait as a younger man here. Leonardo the architect. He apparently, I don't know, he was commissioned or he made a proposal. Da Vinci designed the bridge. It was a bridge for a sultan, an Ottoman leader, to be built in Istanbul. And actually, they built something similar to what he sketched.
He was born in Eastern Roman Empire.
Who was born in Eastern Roman?
Leonardo da Vinci.
He was born in Italy.
Italy, but at the time when he was born, I think the Roman Empire is separated in two parts.
Well, he was born in Italy, so in Vinci.
Oh, okay.
Paintings, and I'll show some of his paintings. He didn't have, I mean, some of his paintings were lost, and some were deteriorated, like the Last Supper, because he used a problematic technique that he invented. So there are understood less than 25 paintings, and yet he's considered one of the greatest painters in the history of art. And what can we say? That it seems quantity is not so important, but quality. It is true, the perfection of the painting and the fact that he didn't use a contour line, and it's so realistic, but at the same time mysterious. It's a very, it shows an unbelievable ability to portray, but also to idealize what he was portraying at the same time. The subjects are religious, but not always. He shows, figures from his time. But if you look at the expression of the human beings that he paints, you have a feeling that these are beings that yes, they belong to his time, but they also belong to eternity in a way. Sorry about the resolution of this. This is the Last Supper, which suffered because of the fresco technique that he used, and here, of course, the famous Mona Lisa. You probably know that there are alternatives of this famous painting, something, the most famous painting ever painted. There are variations on this, with Marcel Duchamp and others who, they all, it's like they were challenged by these mysterious paintings. There are some even who even think that this could be also some kind of a self-portrait in the expression of this lady, who was a historical character, a real woman, but there are all kinds of interpretations. That the smile on her face is the smile of someone who knows it all. Is this mysterious smile that Leonardo depicts. Tells us that indeed life is a mystery, and those who know maybe do not verbalize about it, do not articulate it. I don't know. I'm sure there are plenty of books written just about this painting, And at the Louvre, you know, there are countless people in front of the painting. In fact, you can't even, not now with the pandemic, but in general, there is a large crowd in front of this painting. Leonardo da Vinci, his paintings, a search for perfection. And it was a search, a journey. Did he arrive at that perfection? If we ask him, he probably would have said no, or not yet. As Louis Kahn said, a painter doesn't live because of what he did, but because of what he didn't do yet. Are we interested in angels these days? Of course not. Of course not. But he was. And he was not the only one. I think we impoverish terribly our world, you know, by claiming that we are alone in this universe and that we are the masters of the universe. But obviously we are not. I mean, a little almost dead virus is challenging us in incredible ways. So anyway, we looked at the refurbished fresco by him. And then I think this is the last picture. This is truly just a sketched introduction to, or pre-introduction to the works of Leonardo da Vinci. It remains to be developed both by me and anyone else. We can only wish him happy birthday exactly on the day he was born, the 15th of April. So now I will talk about this incredible Ottoman architect, MIMAR Sinan, who is not so well known, but he deserves to be known because he was, in my opinion, one of the greatest architects ever. And you will see why. Mimar Sinan. I understood that actually the word Mimar means architect, or the word architect in this language came from his first name. The very interesting architect who lived to almost 100. As you can see, he was born in 1490, 32 years after Leonardo. They were contemporaries for a number of years, 20, 30 years, they were contemporaries. And he died in 1588 at 99. So in Turkish, Sinan Aga, the grand architect, modern Turkish, Mimar Sinan, pronounced Sinan the architect, was, pardon? I've heard, does anyone want to say something? Please do so if you do. Was the chief Ottoman architect in Turkish, Mimar, and civil engineer for Sultans Süleyman the Magnificent, Selim II, and Murad III. He was responsible for the construction of more than 300 major structures and other more modest projects such as schools. 300 at that time. Can you believe it? And you'll see not the most insignificant buildings at all. Now these are presumed, you know, portraits of him, you know, but you see already, you know, near him some of the silhouettes that he actually built, architectonic silhouettes. He was truly, without question, a great man, and I don't regret that I wrote equally great when I mentioned Leonardo and I mentioned him. As an architect, he was one of the most accomplished architects in this world. Now let's start with this mosque in Istanbul, Şehzade. I don't know if I pronounce well. I mean, just this building, if you would have built just this building, but this is one of 300. But just this building, look at this, it's perfect. I mean, you don't have to be, you know, to belong to Islamic culture to appreciate its articulation of volumes, its beauty, its rigor, It's everything. Apparently, from what I read, he was born a Christian from Armenian Greek parents, and then he changed religions and became a Muslim, an Ottoman Muslim. Look, I mean, this is a building. It's a creation. It's not that you know, he made a little pastiche of an existing building. No, and it's just one of 300 buildings. Unbelievable. I mean, in my opinion, this man is the equal of Frank Lloyd Wright and Palladio and so on. He is. He is. Look at this. I think this is modern architecture. You know, the sculpturalness of the building. Though if indeed Le Corbusier was right that architecture is about the play of light and shadow, well, what else do we see here? Exactly this, in a very vigorous way. What we see here is that difficult to arrive at multiplicity in unity. All these fragments come together in an organic kind of way, but also in a crystal-like kind of way. You know, there's all this conglomerate, architectural conglomerate, an interior of this mosque. Look at this. This is the art of engineering. This is not just a little scribble on paper, you know. I mean, this man built. I mean, really, without trying in any way, my God, forgive me, but, you know, the genius Leonardo, he just did some sketches, beautiful sketches. This man built these buildings. One of 300. Again, do we need ornaments in architecture? What do you think? What do you think? It doesn't matter what architecture I show, ornament is present. Why we reject ornament? You tell me. Ornament is about beauty. It's what it is. By rejecting ornament, we cripple our buildings. That's what we do. This is a great mosque, the Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul. My God, my God. It even has a courtyard, and look at it. It doesn't matter how you look at it, from the air, from the level of the eye on earth, it's a glorious building. It is, and who says it is not doesn't know what he or she is talking about. It is a great building. I'm not a Muslim, but I admire this building, you know, and I think there is one God. There aren't 3 gods or 5 or 6 or 7. There is one, and you can call that God, you know, Buddha or Muhammad or Ismail or you know, God, the father of Jesus, or even Jesus. He doesn't. He's one actually. They cannot be several, or there could be several, like in you know, polytheism. But all in all, is about the same thing, the same vital creative center that gave birth to the world. And we should only be in peace, really. Why are we at war with each other? I don't understand. Why do we have 2 Easters? You know, why? It's absurd, no? 2 Easters? You know, the Catholic one and the Orthodox one? I mean, what do you mean that Jesus was, you know, coming back to life on 2 different dates? Can you believe it? I mean, there are absurd things in the world. Not even within the same religion, people are not at peace and in harmony. Not even within the same religion. On the other hand, Islam, the Judaism and Christianity, they all derive from the same root, from Abraham. Abraham, Ibrahim, Avram. They are good relatives. They are brothers, actually. Now, we are at war. There, talking about the wisdom of Homo sapiens. We have here art which transcends such divisions. Thank God that we have the artists and the great architects. As Sinan, look at this. And look at the complexities, you know. I mean, maybe these studies were done after his death, but it doesn't matter. Obviously, his buildings invite to complex analysis that also, in the case of Alberti, something similar happens. The Süleymaniye Mosque in the interior, which is majestic, beauty doesn't have frontiers. You cannot say that this is beautiful for one religion and is not beautiful for another one. It's not true. It is not true. Another great mosque in Edirne. Look at this. If he would have built just one of these, then he would have deserved a significant place in the history of architecture. But he built 300. And we are going also to see also profane buildings like a bath, you know, public bath or a school. The interior. How did they make the drawings for this? You know, I mean, you know, they didn't have our technologies. This would be very difficult to do in our time. And how did they do it then? You know, 500 years ago. MIMAR Sinan, the architect, another mosque in Trikala, a smaller one, but with some, who knows, you know, some parts were damaged, you know, rebuilt, and but still, some of it is his. The purity of the drawing, of the plan, of the elevation. So should a Christian think that the Muslim didn't search for God? Well, what else are these buildings? Don't they have also an aspiration, a longing for the above, for God? Of course they do. There are some differences, but they are not essential, I think. Another mosque in Crimea. Here is an illustration, a graphic illustration from 1566, where the expert think that MIMAR Sinan is represented on the left. You'll see it at the tomb of Suleiman the Magnificent, meaning this one. They didn't have cameras at that time, so. This is a mosque from 1575 in Edirne in Turkey. We saw already a picture of this. Detail, if we can call it a detail. The coherence, you know, the way all parts are interconnected is unbelievable. And also the freshness of the vision. I mean, this is to me almost like a modern building. A bridge in Bosnia from 1577. Look at this. More than 340 years ago, this was built on the plans of Sinan, MIMAR Sinan, the architect Sinan, the great architect Sinan. Stone still stands. Mimar Sinan's architectural concepts were incorporated into the design of the famous Taj Mahal in the Mughal Empire of Shah Jahan. So, you know, his architectural ideas were imported far away, like in India. We know the Taj Mahal. Of course, this is just a rendering of it. Another mosque in Sophia, in Bulgaria, not far away from here, also by Mimar Sinan. And he worked until he died in 99. You see, creativity even prolongs one's life. If you lead a creative, satisfying life at the level of expressing your thoughts, your emotions, this is good also for you at the level of your own well-being. And indeed, you could live longer. Picasso lived over 90, Frank Lloyd Wright lived over 90, Sinan lived to 99. Now, of course, there are examples also of artists and architects who live less. But I would believe that if you are creative and you express yourself, and yeah, you might have a better chance to have a longer life. But when you are frustrated, when you are inhibited, when you know, hide within your chest, you know, feelings and thoughts, and you know, there is a greater chance you get sick. I think a trip, if the pandemic goes away, a trip to Istanbul would be very, very beneficial and interesting. They have an interesting culture there, and it's a melt pot between various religions and cultures, between East and West. Hagia Sophia, Hurrem, Sultan, Bathhouse. It's a bathhouse, the Turkish bath, hammam, constructed by architect Mimar Sinan. Now, of course, you know, it's like saying by architect Sinan, with the order of Sultan Süleyman the Magnificent for his wife, known in the West as Roxelana or Roxelane, located in Istanbul, close to the Hagia Sophia. Look at this. I personally think it's great architecture. It's almost modern, you know. There are no embellishments, there are no adornments. It's just the structure and some play with the bricks. But it's an excellent work. I think this is part of this. Is the I read somewhere the dome of the men's hot room. Look at the dome of the men's room. Who say that this is not a modern work? It is, and it's a beautiful one. So this is the dome of the men's hot room. Now another mosque. what do we see here? We see in a way that correspondence between the microcosm and the macrocosm that we talked about when we talked about Leonardo da Vinci. In his case, was about the correspondence between the interior of the human body and the universe outside. Here we have the metaphor of the same thing. You know, the earth, what we see here on the earth and what is above, let's say the realm of God, and there is a dialogue between the two. MIMAR Sinan, another mosque. These blue walls, the blue ceramics, which come from the Persian culture, which Frank Lloyd Wright admires so much, and the bluish domes of the Persian culture are magnificent. Of really this abstract language of you know, the graphic beauty of the the language is astonishing. You know, there are things being written there, but the writing is like a beautiful graphic work. Mimar Sinan.
Yeah.
Should we use again ceramics in architecture? I think we should. And I have, if you want, not now, not today, but I have a presentation called Architecture and well, Arhitectura și lutul in Românește, Architecture and Clay, where I talk about the ceramics in architecture, both from the past and the present. There are examples. Of course, Gaudi used ceramics a lot, and he was not the only one. But I truly believe, please consider seriously to bring back ceramics into your work. But if you bring back ceramics into your work, you will also have to bring back ornaments into your work. And you wouldn't do crime of this, I'm sure. You will do something to enrich architecture. Plus, the ceramic tile belongs to the earth. No, that's what it is, a ceramic tile. It is earth. And thus you warm up your feeling, your building. These ceramic tiles are beautiful, and they can be used in an infinite way, numbers of ways. Bring back ceramic tiles to architecture. Forget about what a professor say. Bring back the ceramics into your work. Cover the white box with beautiful ceramic tiles in a creative way. You create an ornament. You create ways. There is a Spanish architect who is the most provocative and interesting architects today, who uses ceramic tiles in futuristic ways. You can invent, create ways in which you can reconnect your concrete block or box or metallic box with really, you know, let's compare this with Lacaton and Vassal. Really, I'm tired of the minimalism of our time. There is no beauty really. There isn't. There is some kind of a sadness showing some kind of impotence, not omnipotence and not exuberance. Here I see exuberance. I'm sorry. I'm tired of these pale figures, you know, frustrated and so on. We can build, yes, this was built for God, it's true, but we can enrich even profane architecture in very interesting ways if we are creative enough, and if we escape the terrible dogma that ornament is not to be used in today's architecture and so on. It's simply not true. I guess this is a cafeteria. I don't know the language, but I see the four letters there. There is coherence, structural coherence, of course. Now, this Ali Pasha complex, this is a mosque complex designed and built between 1580 and 1587 by MIMAR Sinan, who at the time was in his 90s. And he was still creating and building. Bravo to him. The mosque itself was constructed in 1578 and 1580. He died in 1599, I think, or 1590. Yeah, I think 1599 or 1590. Anyway, but it's a great mosque, sculptural and vigorous and so on. The Ali Pasha chronogram. Invent a new way of writing. Bring back forgotten realms to architecture, and you will not regret. First of all, bring joy to architecture, real joy. Listen to Ode to Joy by Beethoven and draw and model, and you'll see a different kind of architecture will be born than the one that we are so fond of with our little rectangularities that are so tiring, you know. There is order here. Clearly, there is an order, but it's not a sterile order. There is a sense that because why? He was also thinking in cosmical terms. He was not thinking just about making a little human box here on the earth. It was about a dialogue between the earth and the above, or the below, the sky, the depths of the earth, and the beautiful bluish ceramics, which I don't think there is anyone who would say these are not beautiful. Another mosque. He built maybe too many. What can we say? Haseki Sultan complex. Here is not a mosque, and I immediately sympathize with the building. It probably has a religious part in this complex as well, but it is an architecture. You look at it, who is an architect or is in the way towards becoming an architect or is born an architect, feels that this is architecture. What we look at here is architecture. And look at some drawings done not by him, but after him. Another one. So this mosque is a 16th century Ottoman mosque located in Edirne neighborhood near the Byzantine land walls of Istanbul. It was commissioned by another Sultan, Mihrimah Sultan, the daughter of Süleymaniye the Magnificent, and designed by the chief imperial architect MIMAR Sinan. Sited on the peak of the sixth hill near the highest point of the city, the mosque is a preeminent landmark in Istanbul. It is indeed. Interesting that they cover the floor with a soft textile, with rugs. And this is distinct from the cathedrals, for example. And also they leave their shoes outside. So this creates a different kind of interrelationship with the building and as a consequence with God. It was damaged, I don't know, during the war or what wars. There were many wars in the world and it was rebuilt and so on. Great buildings need to be taken care of and rebuilt if they are damaged by the foolishness of wars. Now, the thing is, we don't know for sure. I don't know for sure. And it seems no one knows for sure if indeed he was born today. On the site where I take my dates from, it says he was born on the 15th of April. But on other sites, you know, like Wikipedias and so on in various languages, they don't even know precisely the word, even the year. But who knows? Anyway, it was an occasion to talk about his work. Sinan's octagonal water dispenser on the left next to his tomb, behind the iron grill on the right. Fatih district. This is, we are going to see the grave where he was entombed is here. And there is this fountain, and apparently his grave is here behind this wall in Istanbul. A great honor, no, to have him removed from the public cemetery and On the other hand, it's a modest neighborhood. It's not something emphatic, and I like that in a way the modesty, and with a tree at the center, in the courtyard, almost saying, life is long, art is short. In other words, the very opposite of what the Latin saying says. Ars longa, vita brevis. Art is long, life is short. But with the presence of that tree, emphatically, in the center of the courtyard, it seems the Latin saying is whispered in reverse. Life is long and art is short. That's it. So a short incursion or excursion into the works of Leonardo